Well, as I was walking out the door this morning to come here, I received a phone call from Cardinal Dolan. He doesn't usually call me, so it wasn't the usual thing, but he wanted to let me know that this morning at St. Patrick's Cathedral, 7 a.m., he said his Mass there in honor of Saint Marianne Cope, and for all the people here in the Diocese of Syracuse who look to her and depend upon her, who respect her, who carry on her work in the present day. So it was a very nice start. I told him that I was on my way to say Mass at St. Joseph's Health, and so it was really coincidental that he called at that time, but how delightful it was that he did, and how happy I was to receive his call. On August 18th, 1918, the Syracuse Post-Standard carried an article by Fred Ducher. And this is what he said. When the roll of the saints is called, Mother Marianne will be there. 56 of the 80 years of her life she gave in service of the man of Galilee, whose touch made a leper clean, and 35 of those she devoted in ministration to the doomed people of Molokai. Mother Marianne's name will live on as that of a woman whose noble self-sacrifice ranks with the death-defying devotion of the martyrs of old. No woman ever went out of Syracuse on a greater mission. None from Syracuse ever gave more than she did. She left all that she held dear, her friends, the highest office in the order of St. Francis, which she then held, and every earthly tie when she heard the call, come to Molokai. It is appropriate that we recall these words as we celebrate St. Marianne's feast day and begin the 150th anniversary of St. Joseph's Hospital. St. Marianne, as you well know, was instrumental in the establishment of this hospital that had the unique character at its foundation of accepting all those who were sick, despite the then accepted social restrictions based on nationality, race, religion, or color. As nurse administrator of St. Joseph's, Sister Marianne introduced ways to maintain sterile, clean environments so sickness did not spread. And this practice was eminently helpful when she arrived at Molokai. If we were using the gospel assigned for today, we would meet a man with a withered hand. A withered hand suggests a dry, shriveled up, and wilted hand. And if the man extended his hand to another, most likely it would not be accepted. A physical deformity made one unclean. He would be unwelcome in the community, unwelcome in the temple and synagogue, someone to avoid. I mentioned this gospel account because Pope Francis often speaks about reaching out to others, especially those on the fringes. He urges us to follow the example of the Good Samaritan and help those in need. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, the priest and the Levite walk by the half-dead man, but the Samaritan saw and did not pass by. Marianne would have welcomed the man with the withered hand. She would have touched his hand and welcomed him into the community. She would have rejoiced at his healing. The attitude of the Good Samaritan was her lifestyle. For 35 years, the lepers in whom she saw the face of Christ were the center of her life. They were her neighbors. She did not pass them by, but lived among them, loving and caring for them while society shunned them and treated them as outcasts. At her beatification, Pope Benedict said, "Like the Good Samaritan, she became their mother. She drew strength from her faith, the Eucharist, her devotion to the Blessed Mother, and from prayer. She did not seek earthly honors or approval." She wrote, "I do not expect a high place in heaven. I will be very grateful to have a little corner where I can love God for all eternity." The Beatitudes just proclaimed give us the key element in Jesus' teaching. They sum up his teaching in simple yet profound declarations that point out the way to true happiness. I think the sixth one has special significance in the life of Mother Marianne. Blessed are the single-hearted, for they shall see God. The single-hearted center their lives on God. In their poverty, they realize that real riches are found only in God. In their sorrow, they discover true joy, embraced in God's love. In their lowliness, they understand that only God can lift up a person. In their hunger and thirst, they value the Eucharist, the body and blood of the Lord, as a pretext of the great banquet in heaven. They show mercy and not vengeance. They work for peace and not hatred, because they know that God is the source of all mercy and peace. They are even willing to be persecuted because they feel privileged to suffer and die as a witness to the truth. Mother Marianne was single-hearted. She found her happiness in the one person that can bring happiness into our lives, Jesus Christ. In her biography we read, Mother Marianne's invaluable example of never-failing optimism, serenity and trust in God inspired hope in those around her and allayed the sisters' fear of catching leprosy. She taught her sisters that their primary duty was to make life as pleasant and as comfortable as possible for those of our fellow creatures whom God has chosen to afflict with this terrible disease. Paraphrasing her words, I think we can offer good advice for St. Joseph's Health as it embarks on its 150th anniversary. May this year celebrate the numerous ways in which this hospital community makes life as comfortable as possible for those of our fellow creatures who are afflicted with illness and suffering. Celebrating its past, may it look forward to a future that continues to provide quality and compassionate care to the sick and injured. Saint Marianne Cope would expect none less than the best and most compassionate care for all patients. May her spirit inspire you and all of us during this special anniversary year.